Hi folks, in this video, we're going to be talking about how to run payroll in QuickBooks Online. So the first thing you need to do is you need to turn on the feature because QuickBooks charges an extra fee to have payroll built into QuickBooks Online. You go into payroll, employees, workers, and then you're going to click on employees. The very first screen, there should be a button somewhere that says get started, start now, turn on payroll, something like that. Before you do this, if you haven't done this yet, I'm going to put my email in the bottom. If you shoot me an email, I'll actually be able to get you a deeper discount than what they offer by default, just because I am a reseller of QuickBooks and payroll products. Anyway, if you're buying this on your own or you already bought it, that's okay, totally fine. I want to explain real quick what the three options are or the three versions of payroll. So the core payroll is going to be the simplest form they have. It will work 100%. It's a great product by itself. It allows you to have direct deposit. It allows you to set up automatic payroll, file your forms, pay your taxes, all of that stuff. The only difference between core and premium, just going up on the next level up, is that premium is going to give you same day direct deposit versus next day, which is really good when you're kind of running payroll last minute. They have an HR support center, all sorts of extra resources about when to hire someone, when to fire someone, that sort of thing. They have workers' comp administration, which means once you get workers' compensation, it varies state by state when an employer is required to have that. When they have that, they're going to have the ability to make those payments for you or calculate the workers' comp amount depending on which workers' comp company you can use. In some cases, you can pay electronically. Some cases, it'll calculate it for you, especially with the pay-as-you-go options. It has expert setup review. Basically means after you set it up, you can have somebody into it, check it, double check it, make sure you set it up correctly. And it has access to T-Sheets or a program called QuickBooks Time, which basically allows QuickBooks to track your time using an iPhone. You could track your own time. You can have the employees track their time using an iPhone with a special app. And then as a manager, you can approve that time before that gets moved over to the QuickBooks Core payroll product. And then you can process payroll from there. T-Sheets is pretty cool. It makes it valuable by itself. And then the Elite product, the most expensive option they have, they're going to have a basically hands-on setup process. So you can actually call them, have them set up things for you. That might be the better choice if you're doing payroll in the middle of the year and you need to bring in what's called the year-to-date information. So if you're moving from a different payroll system into QuickBooks Online, there's a couple of extra steps you got to take to bring in the historical payroll. So when you cancel the other service and have QuickBooks take over, so there's continuity in the numbers and your filings all make sense and you don't get into trouble with the IRS or your state. So for the people that are going to be doing mid-year conversions, I would recommend white glove service, at least for a month or two, and you can always downgrade to premium or core if you need to, just for that particular setup. The extra things that you get with the Elite is you get T-Sheets Elite or the highest version of QuickBooks Time that allows you to do job costing through that special app that I talked about. And also tax penalty protection, which means if you get a tax penalty, Intuit QuickBooks will basically be responsible for taking care of that. You get other stuff like 24/7 tech support and personal HR advisor. Honestly, I haven't used any of them too, so I can't speak to any of those, but you're going to pick the one that makes the most sense to you by just clicking on try it now. As I mentioned earlier, if you shoot me an email, I'll give you a direct contact that will give you a pretty deep discount on these products, particularly with premium and Elite. I believe the core cannot be discounted because that's their core lowest price. So we're going to start with the premium one. We're going to click on try now. Then once you do that, you're going to click on get started. And then it's going to ask you a whole bunch of questions. So if you have paid employees already where you're doing a conversion from another payroll system into QuickBooks, this is where you're going to click yes, and you're going to have to enter all your year-to-date information. If you click on no, it will skip the year-to-date information. So if you're a brand new employer, you will click on no and then keep going from there. We're going to hit yes, just so we can see what that looks like. Then I'm going to click on next. Then it says, when is your next payday? Basically, when is your next payroll run? So let's say our next payroll run is going to be February 5th. Then I'll click on next. Then it's just asking you to double check the information about the business. So I'm going to put my address there, then my payroll contact, next. Okay, then it's going to give you a list of to do, which you have to follow step by step. So the next one's going to say, let's go. I'm going to add my team members, click on that, and then I'm going to add my employees. So I'm going to click on the first employee that QuickBooks just created for me, and then I'm going to start making some corrections on the fly here. I'm going to put my employee's email. And the reason for the employee's email is so they can get a W-2 or they can get an invitation to log into a portal where they can either do time tracking if you're going to have this T-Sheets, QuickBooks Time special application where people can do their own time tracking on the phone, and also being able to log in into QuickBooks Workforce, which is a place where they can see all of the pay stubs, all of the history, the W-2s, all that stuff. Then the hire date, so let's say Hector was hired 1/1/2021, and then we're going to add their W-4 information. So as an employer, it's your responsibility to make sure that the employees give you a W-4. Okay, so you're going to download a W-4. You can print it straight from here. Your employee is going to fill that out, and then you're literally going to transcribe whatever's in there into here. So we're going to go ahead and put that information. I'm going to make up a social security number. This is not a real number, so okay. Then I'm going to say that this person is married, and then you're going to copy this information from their W-4 form. If you have no idea what this is, definitely call support, get an accountant involved. You're literally just copying stuff from the W-4. It shouldn't be really that complicated. Down here it says additional exemptions. QuickBooks by default doesn't add exemptions for you. If you have a special rule where you have an employee in which is not going to pay a certain tax because maybe they're foreign or they have some special rules, you have to call support and have them set that up for you. Anyway, I went ahead and I filled out all the information that was in the W-4. I basically copied what's in my employee's W-4. Click on done. Then I'm going to scroll down, see what else we got. We have how often we pay Hector, which in this case would be the payment schedule. So I'm going to click on create payment schedule right there, and I have to create a brand new payment schedule, and I can add multiple employees into the schedule. So let's say we pay him every other week, and the next pay date is February 5th, but then the pay period, which is up to what point we measure time to be able to pay them on the 5th, let's say is the previous week. So on Friday the 30th is actually the last week in which we measure time for the paycheck to be created on February 5th. I know that you're going to be watching this way in the future after I recorded this video. I recorded this in February 2021. That's why I'm using these dates. Of course, in your world, it would be whatever your next paycheck is and whenever the end of that week or that pay period is in which you're measuring time in order to create the paycheck. Then I'm going to click on save. And then Hector has already his payment schedule. Then I'm going to scroll down here and then do his pay. So let's say Hector gets paid $50 an hour. And let's say the default hours per day, in this case, is 8. Actually, we're going to put here 5 days a week. So that's the default 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Then we're going to click on add additional pay types. That's if Hector qualifies for anything else than hourly. So let's say Hector also gets overtime. And it says here, hey, how do we measure overtime? We're going to put the first day of the week. Let's say it's a Sunday because we work Sunday through Saturday. Okay, then we're going to have here double overtime, assuming that you're in the state where they do overtime or double overtime. So for now, we'll skip that. We'll just have regular overtime pay. Let's say we also pay time off, and we also do vacation. So let's say we have both pay time off and vacation. And in here, you tell it how this is accrued. So let's say at the beginning of each year, Hector earns, at the beginning of every year, let's say he earns 80 hours of overtime, which will give you approximately 2 weeks. And then we'll do maximum, let's say is 160. So if he goes a whole year without earning, without spending his vacation pay, he can earn another 80, but he can only have a maximum of 160. So earn 80, but maximum of 160. The paid vacation type could be, the pay time off could be like sick time. So maybe this one accumulates per paycheck. So we can say, look, per each pay period, let's say for every paycheck, which is 2 weeks, Hector earns 4 hours of pay time off and a maximum, let's say 16. So this QuickBooks allows you to have vacation pay, pay time off, sick pay. You basically have multiple ways of measuring these things. A lot of people have this pay time, vacation, and sick all bundled into one. You can do that. You have all sorts of options here and how you want it to calculate. Then I'm also going to add, let's say, bonus, because I also pay Hector in a bonus. And all this stuff here that you see is only relevant during the period in which the Special CARES Act, because of the COVID pandemic, allowed special credits into QuickBooks. We're going to skip all that because it would be a very long, complicated conversation to discuss any of those things. But this is just a regular payroll setup, nothing to do with COVID or CARES Act or anything like that. Then we're going to click on Done. Okay, then we're going to scroll down, see what else we have to set up. So right here, it says Hector's birth date. So I'm going to put here 1/1/1978. And then how much did Hector get paid so far? That was a magic question that asked whether or not Hector had payroll for 2021. And therefore, we have to enter the year to date. So I'm going to click on Enter 2021 prior. And then did you pay Hector after January 1st? Yes, we're going to put that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the very last pay stub before we convert it into QuickBooks and enter the year-to-date information from here. So that typically that information would come, in fact, from a pay stub. Again, this is where maybe you might want to get together with an accountant or get together with support to make sure that this gets done correctly. Because if you screw this one up, your W-2s will be wrong, your end of the year information will be wrong, and you will for sure have all sorts of issues with the IRS and the state. So I'm going to put here 10,000. So let's say I'm literally reading off the pay stub, and the year-to-date payments before we switch to QuickBooks is 10,000 for wages. Let's say the federal income tax withheld is 1,000. You're simplifying things. Social Security was 620, and Medicare was 145. Okay. So the net pay optional is just for me to do a quick math here to make sure that the math all adds up correctly. So let me open up the trusty calculator here and do 10,000 minus 1,000 minus 620 minus 145. And what you should see, it's an addition of all your net paychecks for the year. You want to add them all up and make sure that that number is right. So I did it in a calculator. You should be doing it with your pay stubs. So put 8235. It's just for QuickBooks to do a quick check. We'll do continue. And we'll see that we'll run a pay stub and show you exactly what that looks like. So it looks like we're done with the setup. I'm going to go ahead and click on done. And there's my employee. My employee is set up. All the initial setup is there. So when I click down here on payroll and then click on employees, I can click on that and I can see the list of all my employees. He's set up. If I want to make any changes to it, all I do is I click on the employee itself and it'll take me back into this setup screen. Let me close that and I'm going to create one more employee. I'm going to go to add employee and I'm going to create a separate employee. This time I won't do any year to date. So we'll put here Andrea Garcia. Her email's andrea@gmail.com. Let's also invite them into T-Sheets or QuickBooks Time, Workforce, all that stuff. Hire date, let's say they started working February, let's see, January 15th, 2021. So I'll make it a little bit simpler here. And then Andrea's withholding, I'm going to click on the W-4 information. Again, I'm going to copy that information from her W-4. So I'll put the address here. And we're going to put a fake social security number here. Okay. Let's say she's single. And let's say in here she had $2,000 in the W-4. So we're copying that information from the W-4. Then we click on done. Actually, I made a mistake. I didn't put her first name correctly. So Andrea here. And then we'll click on done. Okay. Then we're going to scroll down and select her pay period. We can put it on Hector's pay period, or we can add a new one, create an entirely different pay period. How much we're going to pay Andrea? Let's say she gets paid a salary of a fixed amount per year. You can also do it per week or per month. Let's say that for a year, she's $52,000. And then, how many hours does she work per day? How many days per week? We can add that. I'm also going to click on add pay types. And let's say she gets paid overtime and same thing. And then she gets pay time off. And let's say this is per each pay period, the same thing. So 4 and then 16, and then we'll do vacation. Let's say that she only at the beginning of the year, let's change it. Let's say on the anniversary date, she earns 40 hours, and then her maximum she can add up is 160. So let's say, for example, with Andrea particularly, over the years, she can then earn maybe more vacation, depending on your vacation policy. Again, I'm just showing you an example. You would have to figure out how this works with your current vacation policy. You can also enter the current balance. So let's say she's already accumulated 8. So you can bring that beginning balance, which we didn't do for the first employee. And then let's say she also gets a bonus, and then we'll click on done. Okay, so her payment setup it's there. So we're gonna scroll down and see and talk about deductions. We can skip this part with the other employees. So we're gonna do it here. I'm gonna click on add deductions, and then you get all sorts of options here like garnishment, deduction contribution. We'll click deduction contribution. We'll click on the drop-down menu, and let's say we're gonna have health insurance for her. So I'm gonna go to health insurance, and then the type, let's say it's a medical, and then the provider is Aetna, okay, or let's say Blue Cross Blue Shield, whatever the insurance company is. And then how much do we take out per pay period? So she gets, let's say she gets taken out $12,000 a year. That's too much. Let's say $600 a year for the whole year, but she gets paid in every other week, which means that there's 26 payments. So let's say the total amount she pays for the year is 600, but we divide it by 26, and then every pay period we take out $23.08. So that's basically what it is, $23.08. And let's say that the employer or the company pays the balance of that, and let's say the balance of that is $1,200 a year, or let's say $12,000 a year. We'll do a more crazier number. So $12,000 a year divided by 26, it's then $461.54. So the company pays $461.54. So that basically gives you an idea how this works. The amount that gets taken out of the employee comes in here, and that's per pay period. So you have to calculate the annualized amount or the monthly amount divided by pay periods, and then the portion that the company pays. Then down here you pick whether it's a taxable, insurance premium, or pre-tax. Obviously, that's a question you need to ask your accountant that understands your situation. I'm going to select pre-tax because it's the most common one. And then I'm going to click on OK. So that's an example of a deduction that you can enter. There's a couple more. I'm going to go to add deduction here. I'm going to do a retirement plan. So let's say we're going to do this, and let's do a retirement plan. And let's say there's a 401k setup, and let's say this is Fidelity. Okay. And then the amount that we take is a percentage. So for example, Andreas wanted 5% of her gross pay to be taken out, right? And because of her date of birth, this will cap it at whatever the IRS maximum is, which is $90,500 in 2021. And the company, let's say they're going to be matching up to 3%. So that gives you an idea, more or less, right? So the employee is putting 5% up to $19,500. The employer is putting 3%, so they're matching a smaller percentage. Then we click OK. I know we're getting pretty geeky into this stuff, and a lot of you guys are not going to be having employees and payroll that is this complex, but this is the real world. We're dealing with payroll. There's all sorts of moving parts. Okay, so here where we choose how Andrea gets paid, I'm going to do paper check because I'm not going to set up direct deposit here. And let's say her date of birth is 1/1/1975. And how much did I pay Andrea so far? Let's say we haven't, so we'll skip that part. Then I'm going to click on done and then enter now. And there we go. We have both of our employees saved and set up. We didn't miss anything. Let me click done one more time and then do finish later on that because you didn't get paid anything prior year to date. So there's our two employees. If there's something missing here, you would have a little exclamation mark. I'm going to click back on that because it's not going to let me run payroll until I do that. So I'm just going to enter the year to dates here. I'm going to put no and then click on next, and then it won't bother me anymore about that error. Perfect. So we'll click on done. There we go. We have both of our employees set up. So now that our employees are set up, we want to take a look at the overall setup of payroll in QuickBooks before we run payroll. So I'm going to click on the gear menu, top right, and then I'm going to click on payroll settings. That's going to take me into the payroll settings window where I can make all sorts of changes on my payroll. So under general tax, I'm going to click on edit, and then there's going to be my official company information, whether or not I'm a sole proprietor or a 501c3, a nonprofit. Then I will click OK. So it's just going to take you to different screens. Federal tax, click on edit. So it tells me what's my EIN number, what is my deposit schedule. So based on how much you pay your employees and how much you owe the government, you might be a semi-weekly depositor, monthly depositor, or a quarterly depositor. For the time being, let's say I know what this is. I've asked my accountant, whatever. I happen to be a monthly depositor. I select that and hit OK. And this is extremely important because there's specific rules around, when you become a semi-weekly or monthly. Again, this is where it's tax and it gets a little bit more complex. So we're going to click on edit here for the Florida tax. He's asking me, hey, what is my account number with the state? All right, so I'm going to put my account number with the state, and let's say my unemployment tax rate is 2.7%. And again, I have to go check my original documents that I have with the state that told me what my rate is, or maybe my other historical payroll information. Then it says, do you want to automate the taxes and forms or not automate it? Honestly, I would always like to automate it, get QuickBooks to do it automatically for me, and also click on later because I want QuickBooks to take as long as possible to pay it on the last possible minute that is still on time. So then we'll click on save. Then we got email notifications, all sorts of information, and whether or not you want QuickBooks to share your information with other companies like TurboTax. So when people are entering the W-2 in TurboTax, the information comes in manually. That's a pretty cool thing. And then we got the bank account number here, which you need to enter in order to get your QuickBooks connected so it can pay electronically. There's a whole process in which you have to authorize QuickBooks to be your e-filing, e-payment agent. So you're going to click on that, go to that process. I'm not going to do it. We'll leave it there. And then we click on done. So that's the overall setup that you'll be doing on your own. Now let's talk about running payroll by itself. So let's run payroll, but first we're going to do timesheets. So I'm going to go into the gear menu, and then I'm going to click on So I'm going to click on the new button here where it says employees. I'm going to click on weekly timesheet. So I'm going to create a weekly timesheet prior to doing payroll. There's a special app called T-Sheets or QuickBooks Time that would allow you to track that. So for now, I'm going to click on close because I don't want to use a secondary app to track time. I'm going to use it all within the QuickBooks software itself. We'll do a different video talking about that. Okay. So we're going to select here the employee. And let's say that the week that we're going to put in time in, it's for this week right here. So we just select the week. Then we select whether or not there's a customer involved. That's only if you're going to be doing job costing. And if you have QuickBooks Online Plus or Advanced. If you have QuickBooks Online Simple Start or Essentials, you're not going to see any of these things in here. Okay. So this is going to be a regular salary. And let's say she worked 8 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, and 9 hours. Again, most salary people, we don't track time for, but I'm just showing you so you kind of see the dynamic of this thing. Then I'm going to click Save and New, and then I'm going to switch over to the other employee, to Hector, and I'm going to switch back to the week that I want to track time for. And let's say that he worked on this project here. And again, we're doing a little bit of job costing. This video is not going to be focused on that. And then let's say on the second time, he worked 2 hours in no project and 8 hours here. So you can assign some to specific customers or projects and some not. And then I'm going to click here. This is regular pay and regular pay. If Hector was working Saturday overtime, then what you would do is you would add maybe 1 hour here. And then on a second line, we would select overtime. And let's say Hector worked an extra 4 hours of overtime. And you see how that dynamic plays in, right? I got my hours booked to a particular project. I got my regular hours not booked to a project. And then I have my overtime pay in a line by itself. So we'll click on Save and Close. So that should give you an idea more or less of how timesheets work. So to run payroll, I'm going to click on the new button, then click on payroll. So after I enter my time, I'm ready to actually run the payroll. Now, there's going to be a couple of things here. There's going to be keep asking you for your setup to make sure that's all correct. So we're going to go through, make sure that all the setup is correct, all the information is correct. This is going to be a summary of the setup. Then we're going to click on continue, okay, and then continue. So it looks like now the system is sort of ready to go. Then we're going to keep going through the setup, make sure that we haven't missed a beat on any of these setup pieces. And we just have to be able to answer all these questions. Click on continue. Okay, we have the tax ID, just making sure the tax ID is accurate and all this stuff is correct. Then we click on continue. Then again, all the numbers, all the percentages that we already set up, continue and done. Perfect. So the setup it's made. Let me go back into new and payroll. And the other reason why it kind of took me to that extra step is because we were still in setup mode. Once you're past setup mode and you're at this screen, then you're going to be able to run your payroll every other Friday as we have it set up. So notice that when we first run the payroll, here's my pay date, which is the next date on the pay cycle when we created it. By default, we have Andrea set up with a salary of $2,000 per, in this case, per period. And then we have Hector, who's $50 an hour, who's going to be based on all the hours we have set up here. So in this screen, you can quickly modify any of the hours that you want to. For Andrea particularly, even though we enter time in the timesheet, she's always going to default to salary. So even though she worked less hours, because she's salary, it gets defaulted on salary. So if you want her to get paid less hours, you would have to have converted that setup to hourly and not in an annual salary. So that just gives you an idea of what's going on here. And let's say that Andrea is going to get a bonus for $2,000 in this particular check. Just so let's do 1,000. It'll be easier to read in this case, so we can see it. Then we're going to click on preview payroll here in the bottom. Okay, you're going to get a quick screen that tells you, okay, this is all the net pay. So all your employees are going to get this amount in their net paychecks or direct deposit. This is the employee portion of tax. This is the employer portion of tax. So the sum of the two is my tax liability. Here's my overall payroll cost, my out-of-pocket payroll cost. Here's a summary of each one. If I click on edit in any of these, I can actually edit the specific paycheck. So I can see exactly what are the inputs coming out of here, what are the taxes being calculated automatically. This is the federal income tax, which is based on their tax table, based on the W-4 information that you entered. In this particular one, there's no state tax, so you don't see that. But if you're in a state that charges income tax, you will see that. We got the deductions. You see right here the 401k deduction and the Blue Cross Blue Shield health insurance. We got the employer taxes, which you can't change, but you can actually see exactly how much this employee is costing you on this check for that. Then we have company paid contributions, which is the part of health insurance that the company pays, and the part of 401k matching. So you see all the moving parts here, pretty easy. And then you see all the calculation of pay time off and all that stuff. So we're going to click on done. And that's pretty obvious there. And then we're going to edit the second employee. I'm going to click here on Hector. So we can see we have 40 hours of regular rate. And then we have 4 hours of times and a half. And then again, you can see everything that's going on with any of these. Also notice that our current check is $2,300, but the year to date is $12,300 because we entered earlier that the year to date amount that he's gotten paid before we started payroll is the $10,000. So the year to date is going to accumulate correctly, hopefully, when you set it up correctly. Then we click on done, and that's it. That's how you click on the paychecks. Then the next step here would be submit payroll. And then once I click submit payroll, QuickBooks will create the checks for you. You can print the checks. If you have direct deposit set up, the direct deposit payment will be sent, and the tax information or the tax payments will be submitted to the authorities. Because I don't want to do that because I have a fake company here, I'm just going to click on save for later, and that would be it. But in your case, you will be clicking submit payroll, and you will follow the same instructions to print those checks. So right now under payroll, if I go to employees, they don't have a history yet. If I click on them, they don't have a history yet because it's saved for later. It's basically waiting for me to run that check. Otherwise, you would be able to actually see the checks in here. You can see a list of checks that were created. So The taxes will be paid by Intuit, by QuickBooks, because that's how QuickBooks Online Payroll works. They take care of the taxes, they take care of the filings. Your job is to do the setup, do the timesheets, and also process those checks correctly. Anyway, I'm sorry the video wasn't probably as long as you wanted with as many details. Payroll is a very difficult thing to teach, especially because it's a live environment. I don't want to make any actual payments to the government or actual reporting to the government. So I want to avoid all that stuff from happening. That's why I'm kind of showing you this example like that without actually hitting submit, so you can see the last button. But trust me, it's not going to be much different. And for most people, you're going to be using direct deposit. So you'll be having the direct deposit experience, not so much the check printing experience. And then you're going to see Intuit will take the money out of your bank account directly and pay all the government agencies that were supposed to be paid. Anyway, I hope you liked this video, and I'll see you on the next one.